you spoke last time when in the first part that we did, you spoke about Kashmir's civilizational past, its
I
Sanskrit
spoke about so many things.
Yes, yes, it's Sanskrit civilization, Shivai, Kashmir Shaivism, and many other things. And you spoke in detail. Can I please request you for about 10 to 15 minutes? You can sum up all that you said, if you can sum up briefly for our listeners.
Well, I'll try my best. I will also try to present certain points which I may have missed. Every possibility of having missed so many points last time. So we begin from the beginning. We were talking about the people, about the various communities, the various ethnic groups that settled in Kashmir after the water of the Satisar lake was drained out by Kashyap Rishi. What is important to note is that at that time, Kashyap Rishi was at Kankhal. Kankhal means he was somewhere in the present Uttarakhand and the previous Uttar Pradesh. That means he was near the Gangetic Valley. So this very fact that he established the valley, he drained out the water, and Kashmir got its name, shows that Kashmir had very close relations with the Gangetic Valley, even at that early point, that dawn of civilization, dawn of history. Then after living together, after coexistence for a long time, these very tribes, which as I said last time, could be also found in other parts of the country, say present Himachal Pradesh and present Uttarakhand. I mean, these very Nags and Pishachas and Yakshas and all these tribes, Khashas and these people, Tibeto-Burman descent and whatever it was, whether they were ethnic groups or not, whether these assembled together and after hundreds of years of coexistence and living together, they were successful in establishing a kind of indigenous regional identity. Now, this indigenous regional identity was not based on simple geography alone. It was also based on the shared values and ideals that formed its bedrock. And these shared these ideals and values had their source in the Vedas, in the Indic culture, in the processes of in the Indic civilization. So this was a foundation movement for Kashmiri, Kashmir civilization. It was to establish its identity within the Indic framework. I want to make everybody should note this thing, that it was all within the Indic framework and not something outside it. So these people, as I said, all these tribes were found elsewhere also. And what was this idea, this moment, this foundational moment? What was it inspired by? What were the ideational basis of this formative moment? What was it? So it was that from the beginning, not only did these people live in harmony with the beauty of their environs, with the beauty of nature that surrounded them, but also apart from the beauty of there were certain ideas on which this unity, this coming together was based. And one of them was that from the beginning, they were driven, they were attracted towards calculating cerebral or rather intellectual graces. There were a people who were drawn towards cultivating intellectual graces from the beginning. And they also, because of that, they were known elsewhere also. Panini, the great grammarian of Sanskrit, he calls them from the beginning in his book. He knows them, he describes them and calls them Kashmiric, rather Kashmiric as if you talk in Sanskrit. So did his commentator, the great Patanjali, who wrote the Mahabharata on his Sanskrit grammar, Ashtadhyayi. He also called them Kashmiric. And later on, we find great scholars and great icons of that early civilization also calling them Kashmirics. That means, as I said, they had developed a sort of regional cultural identity. This cultural identity was based on their gravitation towards cultivating intellectual graces. So, from the very beginning, what happened was that when the society was organized and a certain section of the society became predominant because it was part of it was rather the intellectual part and intellectual component of the society, which led the society so far as ideas and values and other things were concerned. So these people were the Brahmins. They belonged to the intellectual class. They did not indulge, they didn't engage themselves in priesthood alone, in rituals alone, performance of rituals alone. They were supposed to be kalavids, that means connoisseurs of art. Itihasavids, that means knowers of history. They were also supposed to know the six limbs of Indian philosophy, Shadadarshan as it is called, the six parts, the six branches, whatever you may call it, of Indian philosophy, which had by then developed. They were also supposed to be well versed in them. And besides, they were supposed to know the Veds and the Vedangas, the parts of the Vedas. So this was the sort of a people, the intellectual class that led the early society of Kashmir. So after this, in this very, after this foundational moment, which was, as I told you, not only one faith, but first there was the Vedic, of course, the Vedic religion, the Vedic ethos spread not only in Kashmir, but throughout India up to the first or second, before the first or second century BC. It was all there, even much before that. Several hundred years, because Panini himself belonged to 500 BC according to the colonial historians themselves. So it was all before that. So what they did was that they contributed towards strengthening, they contributed towards enriching the various traditions, both intellectual and cultural, which gave them a kind of separate, a distinct personality, a distinct personality. The Kashmirics were known, which I think that I emphasized from the beginning, for their cultivation, for their intellectual prowess. So had they developed the intellectual prowess from the beginning, and the Brahmins who have now as their the present Kashmiri Pandits now as their descendants, They possessed these intellectual qualities. And as it has been, as it is generally, see, an illusion is created that this society had nothing to do with Indic culture. It was basically located within Indian culture and not outside Indian culture. All the different beliefs, whatever belief systems prevailed at that time. First, there was the Vedic, and then there are other which slowly, after passage of certain time, after the Vedic belief system spread, psalms were sung, and it was still there. It was still going on. There came a different kinds of what we today call a sort of a Puranic religion with pilgrimages, with vrats or vows, with different aspects of worship uh, as constituents of their this religious practices. They had their own practices. It was not that they were, we could identify these people are Nagas and these people. You could identify it through them, through the belief systems that prevailed over the entire country. They were the Shaivs were there, the Vaishnavas were there, the Buddhists even were there. Because Nilmat prescribes 3 days celebration of Buddha's birthday. So the Buddhists were also there. And also the worshippers of the sun god. And the worshippers of the goddess were there because Parvati herself is said to have taken the form, manifested herself as the river Vitasta. And it was the river Vitasta on the banks of this river. You see, this whole process was taking place. This whole process of the development of a civilization was taking place. And not only Parvati, but other goddesses of the pantheon of a Hindu pantheon, some known, some totally local, unknown, you see, were also there, they were being worshipped. So this was the kind of the society, and besides that, uh, this was an open-minded society, a society which allowed women full freedom of activity and movement. Nowhere was there, the women were held in seclusion or restriction. And,
Okay.
and they were also given a fairly liberal education. And look at the festivals. See, this Ved Ghai, Dr. Ved Ghai, who has translated the Nirmat Puran, said that they were a very joyous people. They enjoyed many festivities. They enjoyed many festivities, but while enjoying all these festivities, some of these festivities were connected with nature. Some of these festivities were social in nature.
Thank
For
you.
instance, the Ira Pujan Utsav,
Thank you.
when men and women would go and sit beneath the boughs of the Ira shrub and adorn each other with flowers and garlands of Ira flowers. So it was an open society. So,
Uh,
am I
yes.
to continue?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because we have to proceed further, so you could just conclude this part so that I can ask you the next question.
Well, I think time flies too fast. So slowly from this ethos, slowly from this value system, developed Kashmir Shaivism. Kashmir Shaivism, which expanded the horizon of Indian thought. It was a system which evolved from the a tantric worldview, which was rooted in a tantric worldview. And what was the tantric worldview? That this entire world is not different from consciousness. that consciousness is it is the entire, it is essentially consciousness, and which manifests itself, the supreme consciousness, you can say, the highest consciousness, you can say, which manifests itself as the universe. So the universe and the consciousness are not different. The world, therefore, is not unreal. If it's a manifestation of the divine, of the of universal consciousness, they called whom they called Paramashiva. If it's a manifestation or an extension, prasara, just as an artist, you see, draws his painting. A painting is the extension of his mind. So similarly, this world is an extension of Paramashiva. Paramashiva. He is shown as a nartak, a dancer, who shows his dance, and he shows his dance to himself, because everything is Shiva, because nothing is outside consciousness, because consciousness is all, and it is Shiva who has the freedom, the swatantra of manifesting himself as the entire universe. Swatantra Shakti. He has other powers also. Chitta Shakti, the power of consciousness. Ananda Shakti, the power of bliss. Jnana Shakti, the power of knowledge. Kriya Shakti, the power of action. And one of the greatest, you see, doctrines, one of the greatest principles, one of the most well-known aspects of Kashmiri Shaivism is that they consider Jnana and Kriya, knowledge and action, as the same. If Shiva is all knower, he is the basic subject. He is not only the knower also, he is doer also, according to. So the concept of the Kashmir Shaivism was that this cosmic, dynamic power of Shiva, known as Shakti, is virtually the form that the world takes. So basically, Shiva creates, both are a conjointal reality, and both together give shape to the universe. So this was a kind of a unique philosophy. Just one point about it, the unique point of it is that when more than 1,000 years have passed, when Abhinav gave it the final touch and developed it as Anuttar Trika, today it teaches us that we are not specks of dirt, infinitesimal specks of dirt. We are part of the entire whole great vast cosmic process, cosmic forces. We are not different from them. So this gives hope for the entire mankind, that they are not limited. They are not to be they are not abandoned people, you see. Human beings, mortals, they are not abandoned mortals. They are part of the entire cosmic web of interrelations, where everything is related to everything else. So now I think.
Thank you, Dr. Saab. It was a wonderful exposition of the Kashmirian civilizational ethos, and you summed it up so well. I mean, one would like to continue to listen to you. This is so marvelous and this is so informative.